Alright, hey guys, and welcome to my TLDR version of my K1 Revo 101 review. This is just the basics of the review. This is a summary I do after I finish the video and put it at the beginning. You want to know how long the summary is? Check that thing up there. That tells you how long we have left in the summary. If you want, just stick around for the summary. If you have more questions, stick around for the full review. There'll also be links down there to the specific parts of the review if you want to know more about one specific thing. Alright, so this is a GBA hardware clone. It's not like when you run a GBA game on your phone where you're running it through emulation. This actually uses GBA-like hardware to run the games. So it runs them at full frame rate, and the buttons work just the same as they would in the original thing. It has X and Y to replace it, to add to L and R for faster input. It's about the same size and form factor as the original Game Boy Advance. As you can see, it's a little bit off, but other than that, it's pretty much the same. The nice thing about this thing is it has a TV out through a 2.5, I believe, millimeter jack, so it's not a proprietary cable. You can pretty much find these if you look hard enough. They're not impossible to find, and they're pretty cheap. It does have its own headphone jack, just like the original Game Boy Advance. Unlike the SP, it had none. You can easily slot in any official Game Boy Advance game, as you can see here, Final Fantasy VI, and just power it on and it will play the game. It also has a backlit screen, unlike the original Game Boy Advance that had no backlight, and the original SP that had only a front light. This one's a lot easier to see, and the colors look great. This is a higher resolution screen than the original. Than the original Game Boy Advance or Game Boy Advance SP. This is about the same resolution as a standard television set. So this is like what it would look like if you played it on a Game Boy player. Also, like I said, the TV out, so you can actually play on your TV. It charges through mini USB, which is actually pretty awesome, because these cables, trying to find these when you're looking for them and your game system's dying, not great. I mean, look at that. What kind of a cable is that? This you can charge off your computer. It comes with one. It comes with a cable for like that, and also it supports link cable. So unlike playing GBA games on your phone or whatever, you actually have full link support. This system actually only natively supports GBA games. Through emulation, you can play Game Boy Color, original Game Boy, NES games, and a few others. But since those are emulation, they are a lot more limited. As in, you can't link up with Game Boy Color games. Alright, well, that's about it for the TLDR version. It does have some drawbacks, as in it's not the official Game Boy, so of course some accessories won't work. The battery doesn't last as long. It lasts about 4.5 hours, I believe. I haven't finished my testing yet. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. If you want, stick around for the full review. If not, I will see you guys later. I think this is probably my new favorite way to play Game Boy Advance games. I'm not going to throw out my old SP, because that would be silly. It still does a great job, but this is overall, I think, actually better for the many advantages that it offers. Alright, so if you enjoyed this, just go ahead and leave a like. If you want to watch more, check the links down below, or just keep on watching for the full review. Alright, hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at what I consider to be the optimal GBA. For me at least, it does everything pretty much I want, and it does more. So alright, let's go ahead. This first part we want to do is I'm just going to talk about the competition, basically the different ways in today's day and age you can go around and play GBA games. So the most obvious way, of course, is to actually go out and buy an SP. I'm sure there's a GBA and there's the Micro, but this actually supports Game Boy Color cartridges, and it supports accessories through the accessory port, and it's probably the most common option you'll see. The most common version of this is the backlit version. There's actually two different versions. There's a backlit and a frontlit. This one gets reflections on it, and also it doesn't get as bright. This is a maximum brightness compared to even my DS on minimum brightness, which is way more clear. It definitely looks better on camera though, so that's a plus. Alright, so the advantages of this is it has 100% compatibility with pretty much any game you could ever want to play. The port means that you can just plug in any physical copy of a game and it will work just fine. And you can add on extra batteries, so that's pretty nice too. This is one I don't even know if you can find this anymore, but it's a pretty nice option. Alright, and the disadvantages, the main disadvantage of this one is, of course, this is an unmodded system. You can only play physical copies of games. You can't play mods. You can't play backups or anything like that with just the system itself. Alright, and also no headphone port, so you have to get a special adapter that plugs into power, so you can't charge your device and use headphones at the same time, which I think is extremely silly, but hey, they wanted to make something more compact. Alright, so it's just, I can't make it so you guys can see the brightness. Also, the hinge is weird. You can only have it closed or completely open, or like that, so you can't, it's hard to actually get it at an angle where it's sitting down and you can see it. Alright, so the other most common option you'd probably see people playing is playing on their phones. This is what I probably consider to be the worst possible option to play GBA games. Sure, it's portable, sure you have it with you all the time, But the problem with this is no physical buttons. So certain games, you may find yourself missing the buttons a few times, even if you press them. You don't get any tactical feedback from pressing the buttons. It's just not the optimal way to play it. If this is the best for you, remember, I'm just telling you the examples so you can pick what's best for you. In my opinion, this is not really the best option. Again, no buttons. You can't link to anything. There's no connections. You can't use any accessories. And it also drains your phone's battery. So if you play this for too long, you won't be able to actually make calls if you're out and about for a while. Alright, and the other option would be use a slot 1 flash card. There are some flash cards that actually support playing Game Boy Advance games through emulation. And also there's some slot 1-2 combos that let you do this. But I'm just talking about the slot 1 cards for now. I'm using a Supercard DS2. I don't know if you can really see it. That lets me play pretty much any Game Boy Advance game through emulation, and I can even use this circle pad, and it works with a 3DS. Advantages of this is it lets you make save states, lets you play Game Boy Advance games on the go, and it also will let you emulate real-time clock based on your 3DS's built-in clock. The disadvantages of this are, of course, no linking, and it's based on an emulator. It's based on a software emulator, so not all games will play just right, and so it only plays games at 30 FPS. Original Game Boy Advance games, especially on the original system, all played at 60. So some action-oriented games where you have to put in fast inputs probably won't actually feel as good. I know Mega Man is a little bit harder to play on here, but some other games you may find okay. Alright, and the last, in my opinion, best option. Oh, look at that screen. It's so much brighter than even this. This is the lowest brightness on this. You saw the lowest brightness on my 3DS. Brighter. Saw the lowest brightness on my SP. Brighter. And let's go ahead and look at the two title screens in comparison. This is a hardware clone of the GBA. You can play games from the cartridge, or you can play backups or mods. It has a built-in real-time clock. This one right here. And also, it has a higher resolution screen. Although it has a higher resolution screen, it doesn't actually render the games at a higher resolution. It uses scaling. If you've ever used an emulator on your computer before, you've probably used to scaling, since it scales this teeny tiny picture up to bigger to fit your computer screen. So, alright, let's just go ahead and take a look at the colors real quick. Okay, so here's a good idea of this is what it looks like on the K101 Plus, which is the model I'm reviewing right now. And this is what it looks like on the original Game Boy Advance SP. Let's turn off the backlight too. Backlight off. Impossible to see. The original has, it looks like slightly better colors, but also if you look at this, you can see the actual details. It's a lot sharper on this since it's the original resolution. You can see every single pixel. If we go back and look at this, you can see some of the pixels are smoothed out and some of them are blurry. So it's not a perfect it's not a perfect representation, but in my opinion, it's actually really, really nice to have everything just smoothed out instead of seeing pixel for pixel. On this model, you can't actually change the scaling, so if you prefer to see pixel for pixel, you can do that, but you will lose some screen real estate. So it's not really optimized for that. You can also just make it take up the entire screen, or you get a little bit more smoothing, but in my opinion, this looks perfectly fine. Like, I know some purists of the Game Boy Advance will say, like, oh, that's terrible, you shouldn't be blurring the pixels, but in actual gameplay, it feels pretty nice. Alright, and as I said, this can play backups. It can also play real cartridges. Just slot them in down there and it will play them just fine. It also has a link cable. So this is probably one of the few options you can actually find that lets you, 1, run backups, and 2, actually be able to connect through a link cable for multiplayer. There's one more option I have not suggested yet, but we're just going to go on with this one real quick, since this is a more readily available option. It uses a micro SD card inside of an adapter to load up your backups, or your homebrew games, or your ROM hacks. As you see here, it has a really nice label. Micro SD card comes in here. It supports micro SDHC, so that means you can actually have multiple gigabytes of storage. I think up to like maybe 32 or 64. I'm not sure what they say. Also, a really nice option of this is you can actually charge through mini USB. That is super, super handy. And it actually has TV out, so it's like having a built-in Game Boy player inside of your Game Boy. So that's another really, really nice feature. Linkport actually works really well. I tested it with a few different link cables. Alright, so let's take a overall look at the system, since it's the last actual system we'll be looking at. Alright, you got volume control over here. And it's finished with a nice matte finish. So that's really nice. It gives a nice, good quality feel. It doesn't feel like any cheap Chinese clone or anything like that. This is made in China, but it's actually pretty good quality. The buttons themselves are a little bit squishy, but they have some force to them, so it's not like they don't feel flimsy or anything like that. But when you compare them to actual Game Boy Advance buttons, these feel way more precise. These feel precise. These feel acceptable. This is like when you're using, I don't know if you guys ever use some third-party controllers for like GameCube and stuff, or like the Wii Pro controllers or whatever from Nyko. They feel a little bit squishy, but it doesn't feel bad at all. Definitely a lot better than some of the other options like the original K1. It's perfectly playable. I played some Mega Man on here, which requires precise button presses. They are not inaccurate at all. The colors in the screen, you can't really see this, but the colors in the screen actually look really nice. I think it's just the type of display they use. You can't tell, everything looks washed out in the video, but they look super, super vibrant in real life. I'll see if I can capture something else somehow. I'll have to figure something out. Anyway, I think that's about it for the unit. Actually, it does have, since it can play backups and homebrew games, you can actually hit right here and hit left. And right now it says SD card not responding because I didn't have it in. And you can see all the options here. So even when you're in a game, you can change a bunch of the different settings. You can set autofire, which is kind of cheating, which is automatically press a key. RTC lets you change the clock settings. Like I said, it has a built-in clock. Hotkey lets you see all the hotkeys. These are different things you can do. Like for instance, this GBA actually supports sleep mode, which is really nice. So if you're done playing a game, hold down the brightness button and press R, and the game will go to sleep. It will go into low power mode and not use up as much power. Alright, and if you hold this and press L, it takes you to the system menu with all these options. You can put in guides, which are like text files that have information just in case you get stuck in a game. You can read that. Here's the cheat codes by accident. Game guide, there's no guides. And then once you're done reading your guide and remember where you're supposed to be going, simply hit B and you'll be back to the game instantly. It's really, really nice. Let's just go to the menu real quick so I can show you some of these options. Return to file list and hit R and you're in options. This is where you can change your language. This is where you can change your display size and the TV out settings. Keypad lets you turn off the sounds that initially will make a lot of sounds when you're scrolling through the menus. RTC lets you set up the clock. You can change which files show up in your list. This does actually play MP3s. I'm not sure why you'd really want to do that. You can turn off the boot up screen, GBA splash. And then what's really nice is auto sleep countdown. You can set this so after a certain amount of time, I don't know what, you never want to set this at 5 seconds, but you can say after, for instance, 10 minutes is the maximum. After 10 minutes, if I don't press any buttons for 10 minutes, go ahead and put this thing in sleep mode. These settings will work even if you're playing a physical cartridge game. So I could be playing Final Fantasy VI, which is right here, pop it into here, be playing from the cartridge, no ROM, no backup, no mods or anything. And if I go ahead and save these settings, then if I'm playing Final Fantasy VI and I take a break, leave this down for 10 minutes, it will automatically go into sleep mode, which is really, really nice. So there's help. I already showed you this, I think. It does have upgradable firmware, so if you have any compatibility problems, that can be fixed with some updates. But since this actually uses hardware to run the games instead of just software emulation, it has really, really good compatibility. So for powering on and off, there's a power button on the side. It's not easy to accidentally press. You actually have to push it in and hold it for about a second, and it will turn off your device. You can do that again and turn it back on. As you probably noticed, I have a Mega Man styled background. You can actually change your backgrounds. I'll have a link to a page that has way more information than I have, and it actually shows the backgrounds. So one thing I want to show real quick is this does actually play NES games through emulation. So one really cool thing about this mode is the fact that you can actually play multiplayer. You say, how do I play multiplayer? Well, with the use of a link cable, this actually lets you transfer a copy of the game to a copy of the emulator to another device, so you can actually play the game with using 2 Game Boys. All you have to do is just take the game out, or if you want, you can leave it in and just hold start and select. If you don't have a game in, you turn it on, you'll be greeted with this screen. This screen allows you to download games, like if you were playing, what is it, Super Mario Kart or whatever, you could do a download play version of that. It's called multi-boot. Or if you have a game in your thing and you don't want to take it out, all you have to do is hold start and select, turn it on, and boom, Game Boy. Alright, so this is another thing you won't find in any other Game Boy. You can't just run an NES game on there without the, what is it called? The NES Classics. But if you legally own an NES game, you can put it on here. And just simply attach the link port, make sure player 1 is on this side. Then just hit L and R. And go down to Go Multiplayer. Yes. And then hit L and R again. And say Go Multi-Boot. And then let's go to Link Transfer. Kind of hard to see with the weird background. It'll say Sending. And that thing will start lighting up. And then filling up. Which is really cool. While this is loading, I'll tell you about the third way to play these games. The third way, which is a lot harder, is to get an actual flash cartridge. This looks like an actual game. I just put a sticker on it. But it's actually, at the top it says Easy Flash. That means it's actually a cartridge I can store a game on, and I can just put this in a Game Boy and it'll play it. If I want, I can put a mod file on here or anything else that will play it. There's other ones that support putting a micro SD card in there, and then it will list all your games, and you can play them on an official Game Boy or Game Boy player. But these are a little bit harder to find, especially the ones that have SD card support. They'll cost pretty much about as much as this whole unit. They don't support TV out or sleep mode, and most of them don't actually support real-time clocks. So if you're trying to play Pokemon or Pokemon mod, it won't actually work. Alright, so once you got this thing loaded up on both systems, just hit L and R on this system, and then go to Controller, and scroll over, Controller, hit A, and none of this is permanent, it's all temporary, just like if you're playing the Mario game. Go to Link with Player 2 and press B. At that point your game will freeze. Then do the same thing over here. L and R, Link to Player, and press B, and then both systems will be linked if the link cable is still attached. Push a button out here and it will affect both games. Then you just go ahead and start, and you'll be playing 2-player. I'll show you by showing that screen and me moving it by using these buttons. I'm moving on this one and it's showing on the other one. Then if I do the same thing here. So that's a really neat feature they have in there. It's based on a emulator, so basically any NES game file you have that supports multiplayer, you can easily just go ahead and load it up and do a link and play with your friends. Even if they have a normal official Game Boy Advance, this is fully supported as long as you have a good link cable. Alright, so let's just go ahead and get out of that. Same button combination. Return to file list. Alright, now another important feature is sound quality. How loud does this thing get and how does it sound? Alright, so for a quick test real quick, we're going to go ahead and test the original Game Boy Advance SP's sound at maximum and see how well it does. Alright, we're about to see, we're going to do a loudness test. So first we're going to test the Game Boy Advance SP, see how loud this gets, put it up to maximum volume, and we'll compare it with the K1. So let's go ahead and do this. Alright, looks like I went up to maximum of 63 decibels in that test. Alright, now let's go ahead and test out the K1 Revo 101. Alright, as you can see, this one went up to 77 decibels. That's a pretty good amount of sound. Now let's test the sound quality. Alright, so this is clearly a lot louder, but how does it actually sound? We're going to do a sound quality sample. You've already heard it before, but I'm going to turn it down a tiny bit so it's not at maximum volume. Alright, that's enough of that. Alright, so certainly for sound quality, the original Game Boy would be better quality, but I still think this sounds actually pretty good. It's up to you. I gave you like a full sound test, so you hopefully had enough time to figure that out. One last thing I'm going to go into is just showing you the real-time clock. I showed this a little bit more in my comparison video between this and the older model. Let me just open a game real quick. Alright, this LCD screen is really, really nice. If you look really closely, you can see the black. There's like no light bleed in it at all. Doesn't look grayish at all. The colors, well, you can't see them now since it's a flashback, but colors actually look really nice. Those are grays right there. Alright, so take a look. Guys, if you're looking very close, it is a little bit blurry, but overall, I think the processing is really well. Is done very well. I mean, look at those greens. You cannot say that's not very good so I can't remember the word. Reproduction of the colors. Looks actually better in real life. This video quality makes it look a little bit washed out, but I mean, even with the video quality, it looks just as good as a normal GBA, but in my opinion, in real life, it looks better. Just to show you that it has a working RTC, if we hit this, brightness, and L, we can actually go back into this menu, go to RTC, and we can change it to be as late as we want. And let's go back to the game. As you see, now it's evening, so the RTC works just fine. I think the clock runs on the game's, the system's internal battery, so I had to reset it because I was testing the battery life in this. Alright, so I think that covers pretty much most of it. I went over the screen quality, I went over the sound quality. I told you the buttons feel nice, but I feel a little bit off from the original game system. It's definitely something you can easily get used to. The L and R buttons are also kind of a little bit weird, but again, it feels really, really nice. And for all the bonuses and features you get from this thing, it's actually a really nice option. But you have to keep all that in consideration. Consider your other options. Consider that if you don't care about buttons at all, and you don't want to buy anything, you can still technically play these on your phone. Consider the fact that still you get if you're just playing cartridge games only, and you don't care about TV out, and you don't care about the brighter screen or sleep mode, an original GBA is still technically your best option. But for me, when I like to play the occasional mod, like to be able to play my cartridge games, this is the best option for me. One thing I did not mention is Game Boy Color. This does actually support Game Boy Color games, but not from the cartridge. Alright, so it can play Game Boy Color games, but they're all played through emulation. This is using an emulator called Pocket Boy, I believe. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, Pocket GBC, which seems to be based off Goomba, the Game Boy Color emulator for Game Boy Advance. So it doesn't have perfect compatibility either. Nor does it actually have multiplayer. Multiplayer was never implemented in Goomba, and this thing, which is based off it, does not actually have multiplayer. So you cannot use the link port to play these games through multiplayer at this time. They may finish that later, but at this time that's not an option. Alright, and one kind of big downside about the way this thing is designed is all the games are played off RAM. So yes, loading is extremely fast. It doesn't have to keep pulling an SD card. Loading and saving really fast. And you can even technically take out this while you're playing, which is not a good idea, but the game will keep playing because the entire game's loaded into RAM. But because of that, in order to actually save, you have to save in game, and then you have to do another thing. You can press brightness and select to do a backup, where what it does is it will back up the save file that you saved it to the actual SD card itself, or you can just press select and L, and that takes you to the menu. And if you didn't remove your SD card like I just did, it will back up your save file. So this is kind of annoying, but I mean, if you're it doesn't take really that long to get used to. It's kind of go like that, and just as if you were exiting a game on an emulator or doing something else, or about to switch games, you just go to this menu, boom, it's backed up to your SD card, then you just go ahead and turn it off. So that is kind of annoying, and I can kind of see why they do that, because they don't want it to be constantly trying to write to the SD card. It saves time, saves electricity, and it also keeps you from getting like corrupted saves if you like, pull out your cartridge or something like that. It's just a little unnecessary. It's just a little extra step. I wish there was an option to auto-save, where like every couple minutes it will back up your save file, because on the older model, the K1, which I also have a review of, I actually a few times forgot to back up my save by hitting that button, or I'd run out of batteries and I had saved 3 times, but since I didn't do my backup, it was all in the RAM. So as soon as my power died, I lost that progress. You don't lose your save file permanently because you still have your latest backup on here, and it's also good for if like something were to happen in your game and your saves get corrupted. As long as you didn't back it up, you'd be fine. But it's just a little bit of a quirk the system has. It's still fine, and again, if you're playing cartridge games, it's fine. You never have to worry about backing up, because when you're playing a cartridge game, unlike the system like the Retron or whatever, it plays straight from the system. I mean, it plays straight from the card. So there'll be absolutely no issues with that. You can't even access the in-game menu, but you can access the brightness. You can access the sleep mode still. So if you're just a person who just only plays cartridge games, and let's say you just wanted something that could play TV out and had a backlight, because if you want to add a backlight to your original Game Boy, that will actually cost you about the same price, a little less than this, and you don't get sleep mode. So if you just want something where it has these, just something for playing your cartridges on, then this is actually a pretty good option. Still, I mean, you don't have to deal with that backup thing. All you have to do is just play your cartridges normally, and it works pretty nice. The buttons are very usable. No worrying about skipping or missing inputs. Yeah, it's a pretty good option. Battery life, I haven't finished my test yet. I actually forgot to check on it. So all I know is it's somewhere between 4 and 5 hours while playing off a cartridge. I haven't tested the battery using this thing yet, but I figure it will probably be a little bit longer since it's not constantly reading and writing from a cartridge. I left it at a title screen of a game, so it was just, you know, just playing back a loop of a bunch of flashes and stuff, so it wasn't just a static image either. Alright, overall, despite its faults, a few faults, I think the Revo 101 is a great option if you like to play some old Game Boy Advance games. Like I said, it does have some minor issues, like the buttons aren't perfect, although I think they're completely usable. No real complaint there. The brightness definitely helps a lot with the colors and stuff, and it looks really great. But like I said, a few drawbacks are sound quality is not great, buttons could be better, no support for accessories other than the link cable, and it can't play Game Boy Color games from the cartridge, which I can kind of understand because it's a whole different system architecture, but still just a minor drawback. Overall, I think this is if you just want to play some Game Boy Advance games, I think this is actually a better option than the original Game Boy Advance. You're only trading like not 100% compatibility for like 99.1 or something, so I still think that this is actually a great option, even if you already have a Game Boy Advance, just for the nice features it adds, especially the ability to play mods, because there are a lot of great mods out there, especially for the Pokemon games. Their modding scene is huge. But overall, yeah, I think this is actually a really great option, and for the price, it's really nice. So I think you should definitely try picking one of these up. So I'll have a link below to where you can get one if you want. This is not a sponsored review, so there's no referral link or anything. It's just a direct site, and I'm not making any money from the company for making this review. So I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys later. Bye. But now we're going to do a comparison of 2 different models. This is the K1 GBA, the SP model. This is the one I did the video on before. This is the one I bought on my own money. Just kind of interested in it. It turned out